Hi everybody, it's Whisper Audios, and today I will be showing you my collection of old British coins. A lot of you have asked me to do this video that have watched my previous video on current British coins, and if you haven't seen that video, then I'll put a link in the description box for you, as you may want to check it out before you watch this video, as it might help you understand a little bit better the information that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So here we have a collector's edition of pre-decimal currency. In my previous video I describe and tell you about how the money was decimalized in the 1970s from this money into the money that we have today. So let me just introduce you to each of these coins, and then I will explain in detail the history behind each of these. I will just apologise now for any historical inaccuracies. I did try my best to find out as much information as I could about in each one, but of course if there are any inaccuracies or you think I haven't said something right, then please feel free to leave me a comment in the description, in the comments box. So here we have a half a crown, a penny, a farthing, a sixpence, a threepence, 2 shillings. One is an English shilling and the other is a Scottish shilling, but essentially they're both shillings. Then we have a florin, a halfpenny, and a crown. So let's start with the smallest currency, which is a farthing. And this is what it looks like. So the farthing comes from the Anglo-Saxon word meaning farthing or farthing. It is worth 1/4 of a penny, which is this one, so 1/4 of that, or 1/960th of a pound. Now this is a pound. It's a pound note. We don't use pound notes anymore. We use coins, pound coins, which is explained in my previous video. I will be doing another video on the notes of the old money and new money in another video, so stay tuned for that. So it's worth 1/960th of a pound. The farthing was first minted in England in silver in the 13th century, but surviving examples of a silver farthing are very rare. It was used during the reign of the 6 monarchs: Victoria, Edward VII, George V, Edward VIII, George VI, and Elizabeth II, ceasing to be legal tender in the 1960s. The first copper farthings were introduced during the reign of King James I, and it had 2 different designs. From 1860s until 1936, the image was of Britannia, but from 1937 onwards it had the image of a wren, as you can see here. Like all British coinage, it had the portrait of the monarch on the obverse on the other side. And this one is, I think it might be George the Sixth, I think. Before Decimal Day in 1971, when all the coins were swapped over, there were 240 pence in £1 sterling. So that's a farthing. So the next coin is a halfpenny, or as it was called, a halfpenny. A halfpenny is worth half of a penny. 2 farthings, 2 of these farthings also make up half a penny. It is worth 1/480th of a pound. So there were 480 of these in a pound. The last circulated halfpenny was in 1967, and the use of the halfpenny goes all the way back to the 1100s, although very, very few have been discovered. It was originally minted in copper, but after 1860 it was minted in bronze. From 1672 to 1936, the image on the back was the Britannia, but from 1937 onwards, the image was of Sir Francis Drake's ship, the Golden Hind, which always reminds me of the game Uncharted. And its designer was Thomas Humphrey Paget. So that's a halfpenny. The next coin is a penny. The penny was the basic unit of currency and had a lot more value than the modern day penny that we use today. There were 240 pennies in the pound, and the name penny comes from the Old English meaning pennage and shares the same root as the German Pfennig. During the Anglo-Saxon times, silver pennies were the currency used to pay the Danegeld as protection money paid to the Vikings, so that they would not go away and ravage the land. The coin that you see here is in bronze, and it features a seated Britannia. This is the Britannia holding a trident, and it was designed by Leonard Charles Wyon. And the last penny that was in circulation was in 1967. The next coin is a threepenny bit, or threepence, or threepenny bit, as my granddad calls it. Has this very interesting shape to it. So, the threepence or threepenny bit was equal to three of these in a penny. Was equal to 3 pennies, so there was 3 of these to a threepenny bit. So there were 80 threepenny bits in a pound. And the last threepenny bit was in circulation in 1967. It first appeared in England during the reign of King Edward VI between 1547 and 1553, and it was first originally made in silver. In March 2014, the Royal Mint announced that the new design of our current £1 coin would be similar to this design, this multi-cornered design, to make it harder to counterfeit. So it's the threepence or the threepenny bit. The next coin is the sixpence. Sixpence is worth 6 pennies, and there were 40 sixpence in the pound. It was first minted in the reign of Edward VI, and it was originally made in silver between 1551 and 1947, but then after that it was made from copper nickel. In 1953, the new reverse was designed for the sixpences of the reign of Elizabeth II. These coins featured a floral design by Edgar Fuller and Cecil Thomas, and it is consistent of the 4 nations of England. You may not be able to see it so clearly here, but it has a rose that represents England, a thistle that represents Scotland, a shamrock that represents Ireland, and a leek that represents Wales. There's some cultural significance associated with the sixpences. There is a well-known tradition of a bride wearing something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a silver sixpence in her shoe. And the sixpence in the shoe is a traditional good luck gesture, and it's customarily the father of the bride's responsibility to place the sixpence in the bride's shoe, as a token of him wishing her prosperity, love, and happiness in her marriage. They are also used as a good luck charm by the Royal Air Force, who have them sewn behind their wings on berets or somewhere in their uniform, and this is a custom dating back to World War II. So sixpences are very lucky and used as a good luck charm. So that's the sixpence. Now the next coin is a shilling. Now I have 2 here. One is a Scottish shilling and the other is a English shilling. I'll just use the English shilling. So a shilling was worth 12 pennies, and there were 20 shillings in a pound. These were actually used as 5-pence pieces right up until after decimalisation day, until the new 5p's were introduced. And the shilling, also known as a bob, was first minted in the reign of Henry VII, and it was called a testoon, and it became known as a shilling instead of a testoon sometime during the mid-16th century. Shillings were currency in other countries including Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Somali, Austria, Scandinavia and Malta. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, shillings were minted featuring both the British 3 lions passant and the Scottish lion rampart. You can see that. The slang name for a shilling was a bob, so an expression would be, that cost me 2 bob, so that cost me 2 shillings. A saying or the phrase to take the king's shilling was to enlist in the army or the navy. Another saying is to cut someone off with a shilling, means to disinherit and to leave a family member nothing. And there are many, many different sayings for the shilling. Okay. So the next coin is a florin, which was also called a 2 bob bit, because it was worth 2 bobs or 2 shillings, so 2 of these, so it was known as a 2 bob bit. The slang name for a shilling was a bob. And it was issued from 1849 until 1967. It was worth a tenth of a pound, or 24 pence. 24 of these would be equal to this. This design shows a Tudor rose in the centre, surrounded by thistles, which represent Scotland, shamrocks that represent Ireland, and leeks again represent Wales. In 1968, in the run-up to decimalisation, the florin was superseded by the 10 pence coin, which was essentially the same value, same size and weight as the florin. And the florins continued to be in circulation until 1993, when the smaller 10 pence was introduced. Now, I was around in 1993, but I never saw a florin. They must have been quite rare. So that's the florin. The next coin is a half crown. So the half crown was worth 2 shillings, so 2 of these, and 6pence. So let's get the other shilling. So this coin was worth 2 shillings and 6pence. It was worth 1/8 of a pound. So there was 8 half crowns in a pound. The first half crown was issued in 1549 in the reign of Edward VI. The design on the back shows the royal shield, and it was designed by Edgar Fuller and Cecil Thomas. It's quite a large coin. The next coin is a crown, and it's a very large coin. Now, it reminds me of the coin in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original, where Charlie finds a coin and goes and buys a Wonka bar. It's lovely and big and thick and heavy. But I can imagine if you had a couple of these in your purse, it would bulk it out a little bit. So there were 4 crowns in a pound, and 5 shillings made up a crown. So the first crowns were minted in 22 karat gold, but the first ever silver coins were produced in 1551 in the reign of Edward VI, and some coins continued to be minted in gold until 1962. The crown was always a heavy silver coin weighing about 1 ounce. During the 19th and the 20th centuries, the crown rarely was spent and was only minted for commemorative purposes only. In 1965, the issue carried the image of Winston Churchill that you can see here. Production of these coins was from 1965 to 1966, and a very large number were made, making them very little value today. But it shows a sign of respect for this great leader. The next coin, which I don't have because it is worth a lot of money, even to this day, is a sovereign, but I will show you a picture of a sovereign. So this is a sovereign, and a sovereign is made out of 22 karat gold, and it was very susceptible to counterfeiting, obviously, because of its value and because it's made out of gold. It was worth £1, so one of these, or 20 shillings, so 20 of these. And it was used as a bullion coin. And today they are still very expensive. I looked on eBay to see if I could find one, and they start from about £100 onwards, obviously because they're made out of solid gold. Many people use the sovereigns to make sovereign rings, as you can see here, which are pieces of jewellery. The sovereign coin is embedded into the ring here. In addition to the sovereigns, the Royal Mint also created half sovereigns, which were worth 10 shillings, and they also made double sovereigns, which were worth £2. Quintuple sovereigns, which were worth £5. However, the sovereign and the half sovereign were only really used as currency. So that's the sovereign. So, old money sayings. So back in the day, we used to have different sayings that went along with these types of currency. So to spend a penny, for instance, to spend a penny means going to the toilet. Public toilets had locks that could only be opened by inserting an old penny. So if you wanted to go to the loo, you need a penny, so you'd spend a penny. not worth a brass farthing. Well, a farthing was never worth much, and a brass one was even less. So that meant that, God, you're not worth a brass farthing, which meant you're not worth much. A penny for your thoughts is said to someone who is deep in thought. And also, the expression, the penny's dropped, means that the person has just realised something. There used to be slot machines for penny bars of chocolate. They had a lever that you turned and you could hear the penny dropping before you got your chocolate. So that's why they say the penny is dropped. Look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves, which meant that be careful about spending small sums of money. You look as if you've lost a shilling and found a sixpence. In today's, this is still a common expression used today. We say, looks like you've lost a pound but found a penny, which means that you've basically lost something expensive or something worth a lot to you, but you've actually found something of a lesser value. It also means that you look unhappy, because obviously if you lose something expensive but find something of lesser value, then you're going to be annoyed. It can also be said in the obverse, so look like you've lost a penny but found a pound means that you've lost something of little value to you, but actually you've found something better in return. So, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Again, sorry for any historical inaccuracies or misinformation. Please feel free to like this video, leave me any comments, and of course, subscribe. Again, check out my previous video on current British currency. And I'd like to thank you again for watching. Thank you guys for watching.